Welcome to Beyond the Coverage. I'm Chris Horner. Today's episode, I'd like to cover Remco Evenepoel because on Instagram, he's talking about Dear Peloton, ready to be calling soon. All right, hopefully, when we're looking at Remco Evenepoel, his season starts a little bit sooner than TEASING. That's 7 weeks out. And then I want to cover one other rider with Egan Bernal, the Colombian rider from Team Ineos, who crashed at Classica High End, had a fractured collarbone, but he's been back out on the bike training too and doing some good miles when we're talking about down there in the Nice area, in the Monaco area, where he's climbing on some big mountains. So hopefully we see Remco Evenepoel back soon. Now, he's been off since his crash early December, so we're talking about almost 3 months. And then originally TEASING, we're talking about 7 weeks from now, so that's a long time. Now, Egan Bernal, when I discuss him a little bit more, he's a little bit out there when he's changed his calendar of going all the way until the Giro before we see him again. But let's stick here on Remco Evenepoel for a bit, and maybe I'll cover a little bit of Omloop if we have some time in the video. With Remco Evenepoel having a major crash there in early December, and with his announcement coming in Instagram that he's going to Dear Peloton, see you soon, I gotta hope that he's coming back at one of the stage races, or at least one of the bigger one-day races that's coming up, because we have Strade Bianche. That might be a little bit too soon, but the Belgium kid did just get done finishing 200K of training with his teammates that are up there at the Belgium Classics, Omloop right now, and then rode back. When you start looking at his training diary, we can see that last week he's had 2 solid days of training there, and of course the 200K ride that I just told you about. So going into Strade Bianche, we're not going to see that, I don't think, out of the Belgium kid. But could we see him when we're talking about Catalonia or the Basque Country that I had brought up in earlier videos a few weeks before? Well, right now, Remco Evenepoel starting at TEASING seems a little bit of a dangerous, stressful place. Throughout my career, I always thought the most dangerous races in the world first was the first week of the Tour de France. There's no doubt about that. Now, I did the Tour de France 7 times, and 1 or 2 of those times that first week had 3 or 4 bad days instead of 7, but often it was 7 days, if not 9 stages of hard racing, the scariest racing you've ever experienced in your entire life of curb-to-curb action. But outside of the Tour de France, it's the one-day classics. So when I'm looking over at Catalonia and I'm thinking the Basque Country, you guys might be giggling about the Basque Country because it was Remco Evenepoel that crashed there, Primoz Roglic and Jonas Vingegaard last year on stage 4. But that kind of crash is rare to see at the Basque Country for sure, especially in that kind of numbers. So if Remco Evenepoel is thinking about coming back soon, we might be lucky enough to see him racing at Catalonia or even the Basque Country. And if he starts the Basque Country, that'll allow him to go into the one-day classics of Amstel, Flesch, and Liège in a little bit sharper and I think better prepared for those races when he's going to have to deal with Tadej Pogačar. So we don't know just yet where the first race for Remco Evenepoel is, other than officially it's listed as the TEASING, but hopefully we see him a little bit sooner, and hopefully he's recovered 100% from that crash in December. Now, anytime I've had a major crash, with the exception of the 2011 Tour de France when I knocked myself out and then later got a blood clot that shut down the lungs and had to be on blood thinners, that crash kept me off the bike racing for 6 months because I was on blood thinners, so you had to stay on it for 6 months and you couldn't afford to crash while you're on blood thinners, otherwise you know you're going to die. But when I'm looking at other accidents throughout my career, I've never had one that's kept me off the bike from racing quite as long as Remco Evenepoel's had, with the 3 months already of recovery time and then 2 more months before he gets into the real racing. So hopefully we'll see that soon. Now let's go over to Egan Bernal, the Colombian rider who crashed at Classica High End. All right, just a week ago he crashed at High End, but now we see posts going up with Egan Bernal out training where he's doing 8,500 feet of climbing and he's doing something like 125 kilometers of training on the same day. So Egan Bernal right now has rearranged his whole calendar, and officially it looks like the Giro d'Italia is his next race. But the Giro d'Italia is 10 weeks from now, and if Egan Bernal looks good enough to be out doing 8,500 feet of climbing in one day, this soon after his crash at Classica High End, I got to believe he's going to look at something a little bit sooner than the Giro d'Italia too, because if he can go over to Catalonia or he can go to the Basque Country especially, I find those races not being incredibly dangerous races for sure. But when we go into the Basque Country, he doesn't have the big 4 guys on the first page riders, assuming that Remco Evenepoel doesn't change his calendar and go over there. Because at this moment, there's no Tadej, there's no Remco, there's no Jonas, and there's no Primoz Roglic going to the Basque Country. So Egan Bernal, if he does have that 2019-2020 form back in his legs, and he can bring that into the Basque Country without the 4 first page riders, that means he has to deal with second page riders there, which means Egan Bernal, if he has his old 2019 Tour de France winning form back, he stands a good shot at winning the Basque Country, which would be a very big stepping stone to go from that crash behind the bus in Colombia a couple years back to winning the National Time Trial Champion, the National Road Race of Colombia Champion this year, and then going into the Basque Country, being able to wrap up the Basque Country is a magnificent gift to be given after such many years of hard knocks that the Colombian Egan Bernal went through. That allow him to come through with some victories there at the Basque Country if he does have that 19 form, and then he can focus on the Giro d'Italia. And you don't want to go into the 25 Giro d'Italia without being 100% sharp on form, because he's going to have to deal with Primoz Roglic. Stage 1, no problem, but stage 2, he gets into the individual time trial at the Giro, so he wants his legs to be 100% sharp for that individual time trial in stage 2, not to lose at too much time to Primoz Roglic. That's important. So right now, hopefully when we're talking about those 2 riders of Remco Evenepoel and with Egan Bernal, we see them racing a little bit sooner than what they have on their calendar. Now I'll go into a little bit of Omloop because, of course, that's the start of the classics, right? Going to start here on Saturday when we start looking at a couple of the favorites. The standout favorite to me, of course, is the big guy, Wout van Aert. If we go back into the last stage 5 of Algarve, well, he maybe could have won that stage against Jonas Vingegaard. He did a bike change before that last 2-kilometer climb started in that individual time trial, and I believe it cost him at least 15 seconds. Garrett behind the camera thinks it cost him 20, but at least 15 seconds it cost the big guy, and he lost that individual time trial by 11 seconds to Jonas Vingegaard, who of course is on fine form, which is good because Tadej Pogacar's been winning too, so Jonas Vingegaard and Tadej Pogacar look like they're sharp. But Wout van Aert starting the classics at Omloop means that he should be the outright leader for Visma-Leasebike. Matteo Jorgensen's going to start his season there, and of course, my man Victor Campenos. He's racing for Visma-Leasebike as he switched from Lotto Destiny, and now he's going to be starting his 25 season here at Omloop too. So Visma-Leasebike should be the hot hand favorite, the biggest team to pay attention to when Omloop starts. Of course, Thies Benoot will be there too. And when we look over at other teams, Jan Tratnik, Red Bull Bora Hansgrohe, won last year, but does he have the real speed to be able to back up another win? Doesn't have the depth of team that he had with Visma-Leasebike last year over there at Red Bull. So that's going to be a little bit more difficult for the Slovenian rider there, Jan Tratnik, to be able to back up those wins. We start looking further down the list. You got to go to the small team, Q36.5, Tom Pidcock. The British rider already has 4 wins in the 25 season. Yes, it's not against riders like Wout van Aert, but when you win like he did the 2 mountain stages at Alula Tour, plus the overall classification, you know he's got some form. When you look down at Andalusia that just finished, well, he won a stage down there and he had to beat Sivakov and a bunch of other top quality riders there. So he's got to be the hot hand favorite too when we go into Omloop with 4 victories. UAE team members, of course, come with a quality stacked field there, and they got guys that are winning themselves because Jonathan Narvaez is on the team and he won the Tour Down Under. So when we get into Omloop this weekend, we should start seeing the real classic campaigns start to come together with the big teams battling each other. And Wout van Aert, have you brought that form up just a hair from Algarve where you can control the field and win there at Omloop? Well, we'll find out after Saturday, and then Sunday they go into Kern-Brussels Currents. So a whole other kind of field of racers will start being rotated out of the teams and brought into Kern-Brussels Currents. But one thing's for certain, when we start looking over at Alpecin-Deceuninck, we don't have Mathieu van der Poel, so Jasper Philipsen's going to have to toe the rope with Mathieu van der Poel waiting until Tirreno Adriatico to start his season. So Alpecin-Deceuninck, though, are left without Mathieu van der Poel, but do have one Jasper Philipsen. Can he pull out a victory on Saturday or Sunday? Well, we'll find out after Sunday night, that's for sure. Like and subscribe. I'll see you guys on the next video real soon.